May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts be pleasing to you, O Lord, the one who gives us strength and the one who does redeem us. Amen. Amen. Good morning to you all. If you're wondering where your pew mates are this morning, they are at Shrinemont. Around 85 to 90 folks who have taken part in our annual parish retreat. I just returned a few hours ago from Shrinemont, and if you've been there, you know you come back with very little sleep and some kind of head something going on. So my voice has actually improved over this morning. Despite the rain during the weekend, it was a marvelous weekend. Amy Dutton for the children and Mother Margaret and I for the adults spent time reminding all of us of those passages in Scripture where Jesus referred to himself as the Good Shepherd. And of course, the scripture that all of you probably know by heart, even people who don't go to church, know Psalm 23 so well. And sometimes we hear that scripture read so often, we sometimes don't really hear what it's saying. So it's good to stop and very carefully and deliberately go through that scripture. And so for centuries, people have done that in the church by something called Lectio Divina. Perhaps you've heard of it, perhaps you've done it to yourself. Introduced by the monastic community centuries ago. And it's quite simply a process by where you take one section of scripture and you read it, pause, you read it again, pause, read it again, and it's a way to pray. So it's sort of an easy way when people ask me or say to me, I'm not really sure how to pray. I feel like there is this prayer block. I don't know what to do. Using scripture can be helpful. So we did that with the Good Shepherd. And after we did that, we asked them questions like, what does it mean to be sheep? One person said, I think I can do that well because I'm usually quite dumb. And we asked, are there words or images you heard that are surprising or comforting, off-putting, confusion? It's a way to hear scripture perhaps differently than you've read it a year ago or 5 months ago or heard it a year ago. And so I want to do that with today's gospel. I was nervous to do this for the 8 o'clock crowd because in Lectio Divina, you're invited to close your eyes. And I thought at 8 o'clock, that's going to be a great risk. They made it through. But I want to invite you to do that with today's gospel. It's a hot and dusty desert road outside of Jericho, usually crowded. There was only one main road, usually crowded. Jesus and his disciples are leaving, and as they're making their way through the crowd, a man is shouting, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And the more he kept asking to see Jesus, the more the crowd did what usually people do when someone asks to see Jesus. They say, be quiet. Jesus has an appointment to keep in Jerusalem. We have to keep this whole disciple caravan moving. And the more they kept saying to him, be quiet, the louder he got. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. We're going to come back to that Son of David thing in just a bit. Jesus hears that. He stops. and he asked those who were trying to block the man to bring him to him. And when he stands in front of Jesus, Jesus asks, "What do you want me to do for you?" To me, it seems a rather odd question. A blind man is standing in front of Jesus, and Jesus asks, "What would you like me to do for you?" It seems so obvious. Yet that's where the story takes a turn. If we back up and remember that this story about loss of sight, in this story about loss of sight, it seems the crowd couldn't recognize, could not see a man in need. And though Bartimaeus is literally blind, it seems that all those who were around one in need are the ones who were blind. And the blind man became invisible to them. Bartimaeus sees what the crowd doesn't. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. You may remember, if you read through the Gospels, one of the more intriguing, perplexing things is that quite so often, the way the Gospel writers portray Jesus' ministry, they're often told, don't really tell everyone who Jesus is. It seems his true identity, Jesus' true identity, is sort of kept hidden from everyone. Those who recognized who Jesus was were those in need. Those who were paralyzed from birth, those who were hungry, usually, if not always, those possessed by demons. They were the ones who could recognize Jesus for who he is. While even the disciples in the crowd often were confused about what Jesus was doing. They could not really see and recognize who Jesus is. And so he shouts, "Son of David!" And Jesus stops, calls the man over. "What would you like me to do for you?" I certainly believe Jesus knew what the man was probably going to ask for. But in the midst of people who could not see the blind man, ironically, the people who could not see the blind man, it was the blind man who could see Jesus and recognize him. And when he calls the man over, it's as if, in the midst of this crowd that can't recognize anything, it's as Jesus looks at Bartimaeus and says, "I see you. I see you." And it's as if in the midst of the crowds who couldn't quite figure out who Jesus was, it's as if Bartimaeus says to Jesus, "I see you. I know who you are." And in that wonderful encounter, it's two people who can actually see the other for who they are. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked. As I walked around, as I slogged through the trails around Shrine Mont, I kept asking that question of myself. If Jesus were asking me, "Tim, what do you want me to do for you?" At first, it was, "Jesus, I certainly would like a sermon before I have to go back to Burke tomorrow." And I kept asking that question more. Tim, what do you want me to do for you? Keep in mind, this has nothing to do with winning the Powerball, the Mega Millions. Yes, we would all like to retire next week. We'd always all like to buy the lake house we've been looking at for years. That's not this kind of question. What do you want me to do for you? You probably have as many answers as I do. Perhaps your answer might be, Jesus, I might just like some measure of this thing called faith. I'm not sure I really have faith. A lot of doubt. Jesus, I have family members and friends who are ill. Jesus, I might like a job. I might like to have a new job compared to the one I have. Jesus, I'd like to know what life is all about. It seems kind of difficult and confusing right now. That's what I would like. What do you want me to do for you? Jesus, I'd like you to help me repair a broken relationship. I want to invite you into this exercise called Lectio Divina. It's preferable if you close your eyes, but you don't have to. If you don't want to close your eyes, don't look at me. Look in front of you, look at the ground, sort of zone out. A blind beggar was sitting by the roadside. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout out and say, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Many sternly ordered him to be quiet, but he cried out even more loudly, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus stood still. Call him here. And they called the blind man, saying to him, take heart, get up, Jesus is calling you. So throwing off his cloak, he sprang up and came to Jesus. And Jesus said to him, what do you want me to do for you? My teacher, let me see again. Jesus said to him, go, your faith has made you well. What words or images, phrases are comforting, which might be confusing? In what ways, for we who have physical sight, blind to our own needs and the needs of those around us? What do you want me to do for you? Jesus asked. When we gather every time for worship, the principal act of our worship is to make our way to an altar, to redo and to accept yet again the sacrifice Jesus made of his life, and we redo the night before Jesus died. He was with his friends. That same Jesus for 2 centuries continues to ask even this Sunday morning to each and every one of you, what do you want me to do for you? What do you want me to do for you? I suggest that as you make your way to the altar for communion, bring that question with you. I suggest that even later this afternoon, if and when you can find time alone, read this again and spend time with that question. Have a conversation with Jesus. What do you want me to do for you? I invite you to bring that answer if you can. The answer may be, Jesus, I don't know. And that's fine. That's fine. Jesus asked all of us, what do you want me to do for you?